Hi there, this is Dr. Dale, and I want to talk to you in this video about an incredible power tool of modern practical mathematics. And in fact, it's the power tool that enables us to teach students of all ages, really, all of the algebra and geometry and trigonometry they need to know in order to do practical mathematics in all sorts of fields, particularly in industry, and prepare people for the military and apprentice programs and tech schools and so on. And so I want to talk to you about this wonderful power tool. Well, first let's talk about a little history. You can go to Wikipedia and learn about the very, very first scientific calculator that was introduced to the world in 1972 by Hewlett-Packard. It was called the HP 35, and in fact it was called that because it had 35 keys. Now it had an LED display which really consumed battery life. The batteries only last about 3 hours under typical use. But it was an absolutely marvelous calculator, and it sold for $395 in 1972. Now, in today's dollars, this is 2014, if you'll go to Wolfram Alpha and check it out, $395 in 1972 was worth $2,243 today. So this calculator in today's dollars was over $2,000. Now, as a matter of fact, Hewlett-Packard didn't think they would sell very many of these things, but it turned out that they became instantly overnight popular, and Hewlett-Packard had a hard time keeping up with demand, and they ended up selling about 300,000 of these because everybody who was engaged in science and engineering found this to be an incredible time saver. You just can't even begin to appreciate the way mathematics used to be practiced. You would spend about 5% of your time setting up an equation, solving a problem, and then 95% of your time doing the arithmetic, carrying out the calculations. Well, when this calculator came along, it reversed that. All of a sudden, it only took about 5% of your time to do the calculations, much more accurately, much easier to check, and then you had 95% of your time to do the math. And as a matter of fact, that's the key today to being able to teach these subjects to most students in about 50 hours of their time at a self-paced basis with hands-on where they actually get a lot of practice, and that's because of this modern calculator. Now, Texas Instruments soon came out with a much less expensive version of scientific calculators, the TI-30 series, and they introduced the XA in about the early 1990s, it's been about 20 years ago. And this is an absolutely marvelous calculator. It's actually much better than the original HP 35 for a lot of reasons. It has this LCD display, long battery life. I've never run the battery out in one of these. And it's very, very functional. It's very, very useful. And in fact, it's this calculator that we use in our Practical Math Foundation course and for our maintenance mathematics training because it is just extremely rugged, very, very useful, and wonderful to use, and it costs less than $10. Now, as a matter of fact, I've always been a little worried that they might discontinue this because it is a very low-cost item, although that's what TI is famous for. But much to my surprise, in the not-too-distant past, TI introduced another version of this. Now, notice this is a capital A on this one. This is a small a, and notice the difference. A much larger display, larger keys actually, brighter keys. I think it's, in many respects, a better calculator. It's thinner, but it has exactly the same functionality as the other TI-30XA. So this, of course, is what we now use today, moving forward in all of our training. And I want to talk to you a little bit about this calculator now and why it is so wonderful and useful. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about what this wonderful calculator does for us. First of all, it does all the standard arithmetic, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, and that alone is a tremendous thing. They still teach the manual algorithms in our schools today, and quite frankly, I don't think they do much for us. Take 63.25 and multiply that times 14.3. Now, you can do that manual. How long would it take you? But boom, there it is with a calculator, 904.475. And you don't have to show all the decimal places. You can show 2 of them, or you can show just 1 of them, or you can show none of them, or you can show 3 of them, however many you want to. You can alwaalys fix the number of decimal places you show. Now, division is even more dramatic. Take 987 and divide it by 23.4 or 0.1. How long would it take you to do that manually? And do you really learn anything by doing it manually? And here's the answer with the calculator, 42.727. Bingo, you've got it. So these are the standard functions. Now it gets even more impressive when you want to do things like, let's take 14.5 and we want to square it. Just hit the x squared key. Boom, there's the square of it. If you want to square it again, you hit it again. The square root key takes the square root and then does what you just did. As a matter of fact, in the old days, even with slide rules, taking a square root of a number like 9875 took quite a bit of effort and time, and here it is immediately, 99.373. Or if you want to invert a number, I tried 7 already, let's take 3, and I want to invert it. I hit 1 over x, and there it is, 0.33. And by the way, you can always show as many decimal places as you want to. The calculator always remembers it. It keeps it inside. If you're going to do a circle calculation, you need the number pi. Well, they put pi right on the keyboard, and there's pi for you, all the way out to all of its decimal places. Now, in the old days, we had to take a fraction and approximate it, say 22 sevenths. So we took 22 sevenths, that's a fraction, and we can convert that to a decimal. And, well, actually, I convert it to an improper fraction. There it is, to a decimal. And I'll subtract pi and c. So it's accurate, up down to 3 decimal places, so it's pretty accurate. Most people don't know that a much more accurate approximation with 3 digits is take 355 and divide by 113, and that gives you a very close approximation of pi. As a matter of fact, if I subtract pi, it's accurate all the way out this many decimal places, so it's quite accurate approximation. And that's something that you can learn in math, but today you don't need to know all of that. You just need to know here's pi, and you can use it in any of your calculations. Another very useful thing is this calculator will handle fractions. So for example, you can take a fraction like 3/8 and you can add it to a fraction like 7/4. That's an improper fraction. Hit equal, and you get 2 1/8. You can convert that to a improper fraction. You can convert it back to a mixed fraction. You can convert it to a decimal, and you can convert it back. You can take any kind of a fraction, say 2 4/7. That's an improper fraction, and you could square it, for example. And then that may turn out to be a fraction itself. It's 6 30/49. Or you can make it improper. It's 324/49. So you can take it back to decimal. So you need to learn all about the fraction keys and what you can do with it. Of course, that's one of the things we teach in the practical math course. Now, it does a whole lot more than that. It's got all the trig functions, and we teach trig in practical mathematics because you use trig in solving triangles. You use the sine, the cosine, and the tangent. And it's very important to know that. We always use degrees when we do that, but as a matter of fact, you can use, if you go into higher math, you can use radians, radian measure, you can use gradients, nobody ever uses that anymore, and back to degrees. And it has 3 memory registers, so you can store a number in memory. You can store it in the first register, and then you can turn off the calculator, turn it back on, come back later, and recall it, and there it is. And it's also got parentheses that makes life handy. You can also express your numbers if you're using large or small numbers in scientific or engineering notation. For example, here's a number in what's called floating point, but I can easily convert that to scientific notation, and there it is, 3.5628, and that old 5 means the exponent, 10 to the 5th power. Or you could do it in engineering. They always use multiples of 3 as exponents, and I'm just giving you a very quick review of this. As a matter of fact, what we do in our practical math course is we start off in our training and we teach the student how to use the calculator. We go through every one of these functions you're going to use in practical math. And as a matter of fact, we have about 4 more that we use in the advanced training. And so we do that. Now, the way our training works, as you may know if you're familiar with it, is we have a workbook, of course. This is the workbook we use. And we have lessons. Every one of these then would have a lesson. Each one of these videos we're talking about has a lesson. Let me pull it out here and just give you an example of one. There would be a lesson where we're talking about the reciprocal. And there would be a video on that. That's lesson C9, so it's reciprocal. There's a 6-minute video. So this 6-minute video is me sitting here at what I call my kitchen table and explaining to you exactly how this key works. And then once you've done that, we give you a whole bunch of exercises to do. And then once you've done the exercises, we give you a quiz to verify that you've learned it so that you can move on up the ladder and go to the next topic. And this is how our training goes. Most students, these are short training sessions. Each lesson usually takes most students anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes to master it. And so that's the first thing we have them do. And you might notice, and I'm going to talk about this extensively on another video, this is very kinesthetic. You learn by doing. You're actually doing your math now. You're not just reading about it or hearing about it or listening to someone talk about it, you're learning. And you need to watch our video on kinesthetic math to understand the full importance of that, particularly with students that don't like math or afraid of math. They've had trouble with math in the past. But this is a wonderful calculator, does all sorts of things. I'm going to do a few more videos to demonstrate some of its capabilities so that you can see them. But I'll sign off on this video now just by congratulating Texas Instruments for this marvelous, marvelous tool for less than $10. It's just fabulous. As a matter of fact, if there were no calculators in the world today, and you suddenly had one of these, or you had a bunch of them, you could easily sell these things for $5,000 or $10,000 if there were no other calculators or computers. I mean, if you had to go back to pencil and paper and slide rules, this is just an incredible tool. And we need to be sure that all of our students, as part of being math, know how to use this tool to its full capability and use it very easily. And then they can solve lots and lots of math problems and learn math very easily.